What happens when an undercover CEO discovers that breaking the rules might actually be saving a business? Hey there, brilliant viewers. If you're someone who loves stories about hidden heroes, second chances, and leadership that truly sees people, you're in the right place. Today's story is all about a creative co-working space, a bold CEO in disguise, and a young manager who quietly held everything together. Get ready for a journey of compassion, challenge, and transformation that proves leadership isn't about titles, it's about heart. So grab a coffee, settle in, and let's dive into a story that just might change how you see success. The sliding glass doors of CreateSpace Collective's Midtown branch hissed open with a soft whoosh as Sabrina Keene stepped inside, dressed in a simple hoodie, jeans, and sneakers. Hardly the polished CEO look she was known for. Her long curls were tucked under a beanie, and a pair of oversized glasses completed the disguise. No one glanced twice. To them, she was just Brina, the new part-time admin brought in to assist during the scheduling backlog. But Sabrina's reasons for being here went far beyond answering emails or refilling printer paper. Over the past few months, murmurs of disorganization, dissatisfied members, and missing revenue had made their way to her desk. Reports from upper management painted a sanitized picture. Minor setbacks, staffing gaps, client churn, but her gut told her there was more. That's why she was here, to see the cracks for herself. The lobby of the co-working hub buzzed with noise, keyboard clacking, espresso steaming, low murmurs of Zoom calls leaking through shared booths. At the front desk, Jordan Chase, the community manager, looked distracted, typing quickly while juggling two conversations. "Hey, Brina, right?" he said without looking up. "Wi-Fi login on the board. If anyone asks for a last-minute booking, tell them we're full." "Even if we're not." It raised Sabrina's eyebrow, but she just nodded. She walked past the cafe bar and into the shared workspace, observing the chaos. Overbooked meeting rooms, stressed-out staff, and members looking lost. But what caught her attention most was the way Jordan greeted a young woman who'd just arrived. No ID, no check-in, just a quiet nod and a whisper, "I've got you." He tapped a few keys and gestured toward an empty desk. Curious, Sabrina hovered near the corner printer and watched him skip the usual registration steps. The woman gave a grateful smile. Jordan smiled back, but there was tension behind his eyes. Sabrina didn't know what was going on yet, but something about that exchange told her. This wasn't just sloppy management, it was something personal. And she was determined to find out what. Later that afternoon, Sabrina kept to the background as best she could, blending in as the quiet new admin and sorting cluttered supply drawers behind the front desk. But her eyes never strayed far from Jordan Chase, who seemed to glide between roles: barista, problem solver, tour guide, and sometimes rule bender. The young woman from earlier, now sketching quietly at a window seat, appeared again near the cafe counter just before closing. "Out of credits," she muttered. Jordan leaned in, voice low. "No worries, Mara. I'll comp it again. Just mark it under event overflow." Sabrina's fingers paused mid-sorting. There it was again, a favor given without approval, masked under technical jargon. She watched Mara nod and walk away with a free drink and snack, gratitude plain on her face. Sabrina noted how quickly Jordan returned to his usual rhythm, checking in on a freelance podcaster struggling with a mic setup, answering a developer's question about printing access. He wasn't lazy. In fact, he was carrying the space on his back. But the way he made decisions, quietly bypassing systems, bending rules, concerned her. How many other Mara types had slipped through the books, and how long had he been doing this? From a CEO's lens, she saw missing revenue. From a human lens, she saw something else. Compassion, desperation, she couldn't tell yet. As the evening wore on and members began to pack up, Sabrina finally took a seat in one of the lounge chairs near the exit, pretending to scroll through her phone. Jordan dimmed the lights, did a quick floor check, and headed out with his backpack slung low. A few minutes later, Mara followed. No badge scan, no checkout log. Sabrina's instincts flared. This wasn't just sloppy oversight, it was deliberate. But before she could decide how to respond, her curiosity pushed her to her feet. She grabbed her jacket and followed them out into the cool dusk. Whatever was happening between Jordan and these unregistered guests wasn't just about free Wi-Fi, and she needed to see where it led. Sabrina kept a careful distance as she followed Jordan and Mara down 2 quiet blocks lined with shuttered galleries and dim cafes. Eventually, they turned into a modest, aging apartment complex with cracked steps and flickering porch lights. She lingered by a nearby bench, pretending to check her phone, as Jordan handed Mara a brown paper bag, leftover snacks from the cafe counter. "You've got enough for the week?" he asked softly. Mara nodded. "Thanks. I'll sketch a few more pieces and maybe get that client to commit." Jordan offered a tired smile, gave her shoulder a squeeze, then headed inside one of the upstairs units. Sabrina sat frozen for a moment. This wasn't what she expected. She had anticipated uncovering sloppiness, maybe even theft, but not quiet generosity. Mara wasn't just a friend getting free perks, she was a struggling creative trying to stay afloat. And Jordan wasn't skimming from the company, he was filling gaps the company didn't know existed. As she walked back to her own hotel, Sabrina thought about the message CreateSpace always claimed to promote: creativity, accessibility, community. Yet here was a frontline employee doing the hard work of living those values without approval or recognition, and breaking the rules to do it. She'd come looking for fraud. What she found instead was heart. Complicated, maybe, but undeniably human. The next morning, Sabrina arrived at the co-working space earlier than usual. The lobby was still empty, soft jazz playing overhead as staff trickled in. She waited until Jordan appeared, backpack slung over one shoulder, before quietly stepping behind the front desk, where he began booting up the check-in tablet. "Jordan," she said, her tone calm but firm. He looked up, surprised. "Yeah? We need to talk," she continued, motioning him to follow her to one of the side meeting rooms. He hesitated but nodded, closing the tablet and slipping inside. Sabrina shut the door behind them and turned to face him. "I saw what you did yesterday, with Mara. That wasn't the first time, was it?" Jordan's jaw tightened. "So what? You gonna report me?" he said, folding his arms. "You don't understand what people are going through, how hard it is to even find a safe place to work." "I'm not here to argue with that," Sabrina replied, watching him closely. "But you're bypassing check-ins, waiving fees, and mislabeling comps. Those aren't just small favors, they're policy violations." Jordan looked away. "Then fire me," he muttered. "I've been expecting it anyway." His voice cracked just slightly, betraying the wear beneath his defiance. Sabrina paused, then took a slow breath. "I didn't say I was firing you," she said gently. "I said I saw what you did, and I want to understand why." Jordan's shoulders dropped. He leaned against the wall, finally letting his guard down. "They come in here with dreams and no money. No one's hiring full-time creatives anymore. If we say we're a community, we should act like one. I didn't know how else to help." For a long moment, Sabrina said nothing. Then she nodded. "Okay, so let's help them, together, but in a way that doesn't break the system trying to support them." Jordan blinked, surprised. "You'd let me stay?" "Only if you're ready to help me fix this place," she said, "from the inside." Jordan stared at Sabrina, still reeling from her unexpected response. He had braced himself for discipline, maybe even termination, but instead she was offering something else entirely. "You want me to fix the place?" he repeated cautiously. Sabrina nodded. "Not alone, but yes, you see what others miss. You care about the people, not just the policies. That's exactly the kind of leadership this space is missing." Jordan leaned forward, rubbing the back of his neck. "I've never been anyone's idea of a leader." Sabrina offered a faint smile. "Neither was I when I started this company. I just wanted to build something better. But it turns out, building it is easy. Keeping it alive, that's the real work." She slid a clipboard across the table, filled with notes and gaps in the center's operations. "Help me design something new. A community access program, flexible membership tiers, creative support systems that work but still keep the business afloat." Jordan scanned the pages, the doubt in his eyes slowly giving way to a spark of purpose. "So, you're saying I get to break the rules?" "No," Sabrina said with a smirk. "I'm saying we rewrite them." He hesitated, then nodded slowly. Okay? I'm in. Sabrina extended her hand across the table. Good. Let's get to work. For the first time in a long while, Jordan felt like he wasn't patching holes. He was helping build something real, something that could last. And this time, he wouldn't be doing it alone. Jordan's first week rebuilding CreateSpace Midtown was a whirlwind. Armed with Sabrina's trust and a thick folder of outdated protocols, he dove into the mess headfirst. His first move was simple but symbolic: a whiteboard near the cafe labeled "What's Not Working," where members could write anonymous suggestions or complaints. Within a day, it was filled. Meeting rooms double booked. No quiet space after 5 p.m. Why does the printer eat paper and souls? Jordan chuckled at that one but took every note seriously. He began shadowing members through their daily routines, asking questions, jotting down friction points, and staying long after closing to map out solutions. With Sabrina's blessing, he launched a community access pilot, a flexible program that offered part-time workspace hours to vetted applicants at reduced rates. No fake logins or under-the-table favors required. At first, it raised eyebrows. "We're giving away desks now?" one staffer grumbled. But when the program brought in 4 new long-term paying members within 2 weeks, skepticism softened. Jordan also restructured scheduling for the front desk team, ensuring someone was always available to help members navigate the space, a task previously left to Luck or Jordan himself. Amira Wells, a longtime UX designer member, noticed the shift. "Feels smoother," she said during a morning coffee. "Less like we're dodging chaos and more like we're part of something," Jordan smiled, handing her a loyalty punch card, another one of his small ideas that made the space feel like a second home. He even convinced maintenance to fix the leaky ceiling over the West Wing booze, a task no one had addressed for months. Not everything was easy. He fielded passive resistance from team members loyal to old systems, and had to defend his changes in staff meetings more than once. But with each improvement, morale ticked upward. Members stayed longer, new faces came through the doors, even the once silent lounge began buzzing again with quiet collaboration. Through it all, Sabrina remained quietly supportive, stepping in only when needed. "You're not just managing," she told Jordan one evening. "You're restoring trust." Jordan nodded, tired but fulfilled. For the first time since he started, he didn't feel like he was bending rules to keep people afloat. He was building a system that could lift them up. For good. Just when things began to feel stable, temptation knocked. Literally, one late afternoon as Jordan was sorting supply invoices behind the cafe counter, a familiar voice drawled from the lobby, "Well, well, if it isn't Midtown's new golden boy." Trent Boyle, the former assistant manager, leaned casually against the reception desk, a smug smile stretched across his face. Jordan's stomach turned. Trent had been let go for being too rigid, too dismissive, but also for quietly mishandling funds. "Relax," Trent said. "I'm not here to start trouble, just checking in. Heard the place is thriving now." Jordan kept his tone cool. "We're doing fine. Community's growing, people are responding." Trent scoffed. "Sure, but for how long? These creators come and go. You start handing out freebies and running support groups, and pretty soon, this isn't a business, it's a charity." Jordan stiffened, but didn't bite. "It's a business that remembers people matter." Trent leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "You really think this is sustainable? Look, I've still got a few contacts. You want to cut corners, hide a little inventory, shave off overhead? I can show you how. Quietly." Jordan stared at him, the words echoing like old ghosts. There had been a time when he might have listened, but not anymore. "No thanks," Jordan said firmly. "We're building something better here, and we don't need shortcuts to do it." Trent chuckled, shrugged, and walked away, but the doubt he left behind lingered for a beat too long. Later that night, Jordan stood alone in the lounge, staring at the whiteboard now filled with community messages and scribbled thank yous. He exhaled, steadying himself. Temptation would come, it always did. But leadership, he was learning, wasn't about avoiding tests. It was about passing them, even when no one else was watching. The announcement came via email: "Surprise Site Audit HQ, representative arriving tomorrow." Jordan stared at the screen, pulse quickening. It was the kind of message that could unravel everything. Though he'd worked tirelessly to rebuild the space with transparency and trust, part of him still feared that his unconventional changes, especially the community access program, would be seen as liabilities, not progress. That evening, he walked the floor with clipboard in hand, checking every detail. Clean booths, stocked supply cabinets, labeled cables, staff schedules printed and posted. The space looked good, alive. The next morning, a sharply dressed woman named Camille Roth arrived, clipboard in hand, smiling thin but polite. "I'm here from Central Operations, just observing today," she said briskly. For hours she walked the halls, reviewed logbooks, peeked into meeting rooms, and quietly interviewed staff and members. Jordan stayed calm, answering questions, walking her through changes he'd made, and presenting data on retention and usage spikes. Still, he couldn't help but notice Camille jotting something after every interaction. Was she impressed? Disapproving? He couldn't tell. Near closing time, Camille approached Jordan. "I visited 6 branches this quarter," she said, flipping shut her folder. "Yours is the first that actually felt like a community, not just rented desks." Jordan blinked. "So, we're okay?" Camille smiled. Genuinely this time. "Better than okay. I'll be recommending your model be considered for other locations." As she walked out, Jordan finally exhaled. Sabrina, who had watched quietly from a booth nearby, caught his eye. She gave him a subtle thumbs up. He smiled back, a quiet sense of pride settling over him. The test hadn't broken him. It had validated everything he believed. The space wasn't perfect, but for the first time, it was truly working. A few days after the audit, the atmosphere at CreateSpace Midtown buzzed with a different kind of energy. Staff and regular members were invited to an all-hands meeting in the main event space, with folding chairs set in neat rows and coffee brewing at the back. Jordan assumed it was a debrief from HQ. He stood near the side wall, clipboard in hand, until Sabrina stepped to the front, not in her usual Brina hoodie, but in a sleek blazer, her presence commanding the room. "Thanks for coming, everyone," she began. "Some of you know me as our new admin," she smiled faintly, "but my full name is Sabrina Keene, founder and CEO of CreateSpace Collective." A ripple of stunned whispers moved through the room. Jordan froze. His mind raced back to every conversation they'd had, every decision, every confession. She looked directly at him. "I came here undercover to understand why this branch was underperforming," she continued. "And what I found wasn't just a broken system. I found someone who cared enough to fix it." Sabrina stepped toward him and handed over a small sealed envelope. "Jordan Chase, you've proven that leadership isn't about titles, it's about action. I'd like to officially offer you the role of Director of Community Innovation for CreateSpace Collective." The room burst into applause. Jordan stood motionless for a moment, overwhelmed. "Are you sure?" he asked under his breath. Sabrina smiled. "I've never been more sure of anything." With shaking hands, he opened the envelope. Inside was a new badge, embossed with his name and title. The crowd clapped louder as his team stepped in with pats on the back and wide grins. For the first time in his life, Jordan felt seen, not just for what he'd done, but for who he'd become. 2 weeks later, the transformation at CreateSpace Midtown was unmistakable. Sunlight filtered through the tall windows as soft music played in the background, blending with the hum of conversation and clicking keyboards. The once chaotic front desk now ran like clockwork, and the walls featured member art curated by Jordan himself. A corkboard near the cafe proudly displayed success stories, new client wins, creative launches, and thank you notes from those once on the verge of giving up. At the heart of it all stood Jordan, now confidently wearing a navy badge that read, Director of Community Innovation. He walked the space with ease, checking in with staff and greeting members by name. Near the front booth, he paused to help Mara, now freshly signed to a digital design agency, prep for her first big client call. "You've got this," he whispered. She smiled, full of quiet pride. Behind him, a new member stepped hesitantly through the doors, backpack slung low, eyes scanning the room. Jordan crossed the floor without hesitation. "Welcome," he said warmly. "Let's find a space to create." From a distance, Sabrina watched from the cafe, sipping her espresso with a satisfied smile. The disguise was gone, but the impact remained. This wasn't just a co-working space anymore. It was a thriving ecosystem built on trust, empathy, and a belief that people matter. And as the day moved forward, Jordan didn't just run the place, he embodied what it stood for. A place where no one was invisible, a place where everyone had room to grow. The story of CreateSpace Midtown teaches a powerful lesson about leadership, second chances, and the quiet strength of doing the right thing when no one's watching. At first glance, Jordan Chase appeared to be bending the rules, comping access, skipping check-ins, but beneath those actions was a deep desire to protect and uplift a creative community that often falls through the cracks. Instead of punishment, Sabrina Keene, the Undercover CEO, chose to listen and discovered that true leadership isn't about enforcing rigid rules, but about understanding the why behind the choices people make. Jordan didn't need power to lead, he just needed trust. Through him, we learned that compassion, when paired with accountability, can drive meaningful change. People flourish when they're seen, valued, and given the tools to grow. Businesses don't succeed just by managing people, they thrive by believing in them. Sabrina's decision to empower Jordan, rather than discard him, didn't just save a struggling location. It redefined how the entire company could operate. The lesson is clear. Real innovation begins with empathy, and sometimes the person who breaks the rules for the right reasons is exactly who you need to rebuild the future.